welcome aboard the East Tennessee and Western North Carolina Railroad. The ETW&C began running trains in 1882 from Johnson City, and they passed on up through the gorge here as they were climbing up through the mountains to Cranberry, North Carolina, a little place just over the state line up there. It was 34 miles up to Cranberry, and right here was about halfway, and it was also the most scenic part of the trip, so we're glad we can share it with you today. So we'll get going and
Engine 16.
have a look at the scenery up here.
Engine 16, you'll be all clear.
I didn't know if you could get the radio call on the show.
I was.
Okay. As long as you let them know.
I'm going to see if Mark can hear me when we get to party.
Slide in on there.
Make sure that this is still working.
Oh, sure it is.
point, deep in the gorge. This is our scenic stop in the deepest and narrowest part of the gorge. The rock face across from us is better part of 700 feet, straight up out of the river. You can see it's quite a rugged place. They had to build a railroad through. Not just here, but many parts of the way going through the mountains. They spent about $1 million in 1880s money to build 34 miles of railroad out to Cranberry. And they were trying to get to the Cranberry because there was an iron mine there. They found iron up there around 1780, and by 1820, a forge had been established there. And by the time of the Civil War, between 40 and 60 men worked up there, sending iron to the Confederacy. So by that time, they figured out they needed a railroad. And the very next year after the Civil War, in 1866, the East Tennessee and Western North Carolina Railroad was organized, and they began raising money and trying to lay a track. But it took bankruptcy and new investment and another whole 16 years before the first train finally made it to Cranberry in 1882. So once it was here, once it was finally here, it was the way to go. It really opened up the way into the mountains. It made a way for not just to haul iron, but for lumber companies to come out here and start hauling out timber. It opened up the mountains to tourism. Back in the day before air conditioning in the hot summertime, people would come to the mountains for relief from the summer heat. There were a lot of resort hotels built up here. So this little railroad hauled a lot of different things. But it was the timber industry in particular that was the main reason that the railroad was extended over the next few decades as they moved to new stands of timber. And by 1919, the railroad got all the way to Boone, North Carolina, by which time they had just about doubled the railroad to 66 miles. And all of the mountain communities are very grateful to have railroad service, and the people in Boone were no exception. They had a big celebration event when the first train came, and different people made speeches. Mr. J.H. Shuller was the mayor of nearby Banner Elk at the time, and he was invited to say a few words. And he very nicely captured the isolation that the mountain communities lived in until the railroad came. He told the following joke. He said, "I remember when the only way a person could get to Boone was to be born there." So I always share that little joke because I feel like it captures what the railroad meant to the mountain people. It really was their lifeline for many years. But of course, the automobile age came and the highways got built through the mountains, and a lot of the traffic started going that way. But anyway, that's a little bit of the history. The railroad continued to operate until 1950. Almost 70 years. Traffic declined sharply after the Second World War, so they finally called it quits in 1950. These days we use the railroad to bring campers up here all summer long. We have Adventure Quest camps for ages 8 to 18. You can see it's a fabulous property for outdoor adventure activities. We're getting a river right over there with inner tubes and ride the whitewater. We have a big challenge course that's even beyond here. So we use the railroad to get campers to those activities. And around the rest of the park we have other reps course, challenge course type things, and rock climbing and rappelling. Of course, we have the lake activities. All the lake activities right next to where you got on the train. So we have a lot of fun and adventure all summer, and while we're at it, we learn about life's greatest adventure, which is knowing Jesus Christ in a personal way and living your life for Him. So that's what Doe River Gorge is about these days. And we're glad you came out to see us today. Hope you get to know us better. If you are interested in camp next year, we already have registration open. Early bird rate is still in effect, so register soon and get the best rate, and you also get the choice of dates. Best choice of dates there. You can also come up with your whole family on a Saturday throughout the summer from mid-June to early September. We'll have 10 different Saturdays we're open. All the lake activities are available, including the zip line and the log. The Unimog gives rides, horseback rides, the climbing wall, and of course we run the train. So come up with your family or your church group or company picnic either.
Set up first.
I can't do it.
What's more comfortable?
Yeah, he does. I can't do it.
What's that? Set up there.
He's just not built that way.
Okay.
Yoga class. It's not part of the yoga class.
One car clear.
Okay, now set up tall. One, two, three. It's all about the beach.
Two more cars.
Rails right, 2 cars.
And I wonder why I never took a good picture.
You'll thank me one day. Not today. I'll just put it.
Three cars are
Lay down.
Plan 3 cars.
You mean?
Clear. 2 cars.
2 cars, 2.
I did that in Snow. Yeah, I saw that.
Kurt said Reverend sitting on the bench by himself forward.
I was on Superman.
One car.
On Superman. That's the best time.
All bigger than 22
You're on the
cars.
train. Oh my God. That's all.
Four, I am clear.
I know.
2 cars.
Just watching the rocks. Watching for aggressive.
My wall.
I've been aggressive. They'll be out here with logs across the trail, across the rails. Across the trail.
So there's a few fun stories that have come down with the history of the railroad. One of them that claim happened right along here. Big John Lewis was an engineer on the railroad. He was a great uncle of one of our volunteers, so that's how we know this story. If you're in the riverside here, like most of you are, take a look over as we come out of this cut here, and you'll see how close we are to the edge and how steep it is. So they're coming along here one day, and Big John was kind of leaning out the window, leaning on the window sill, leaning out, help stay covered and help see where he's going. And he gets in the big ass scenes all of a sudden, and his first teeth come out. But if you're looking down over the side there, you can see it probably not halfway to the river. Anyway, he was the engineer, so he reached up, put the brakes on, stopped the whole train, got down from the locomotive, and they weren't going anywhere until he found his teeth. I doubt they were on time now, but nice view over here if you missed them on the way up. That's Cedar Mountain over there. Elevation 3,300 feet, big rock outcrops. It's about 1,300 feet above us here at track limit. railroad, as we mentioned, was the East Tennessee and Western North Carolina. Well, that's kind of a mouthful. Hardly anybody ever called it that. And even the initials ET and W&C, you kind of have to twist your mouth the right way to do that. So a lot of people just call it the ET. And then somewhere along the way, it acquired the nickname Tweetsie. And that's still a well-known name today. The Tweetsie Trail now runs between Johnson City and Elizabeth, and that part of the railroad is now a bike path.
Clear. 5 cars.
And over at Lone Rock, North Carolina, there's the Tweetsie Railroad Amusement Park. They train ride. They took the well-known nickname and made that an official trademark name. And over at Lone Rock, they have an original locomotive. Their number 12 used to steam right through these tunnels and along these ledges all the way up until 1950. So people call it the ET or they call it Tweetsie. And sometimes they would make up numerous other words to go with ET and W&C. You could say early trains, real nice conductors. Or you could say every time with no complaint. Or you could say eat taters and wear no clothes. ET and W&C. But each of those was apropos in one way or another. We talked about how the railroad was the lifeline for these mountain communities for so many years. So it really was a little train that came through every day, every time, presumably with no complaint. And a lot of these mountain people were pretty poor, especially during the Depression years. There was a lot of real poverty. People just barely scratched out a living in their potato patch. So eat taters and wear no clothes, that certainly goes along with the idea of poverty. And while the trains weren't necessarily early, we do know that the conductors were nice. Mr. Cy Crumley was the best known conductor on the railroad. His career spanned an amazing 54 years. So if you rode the train, he pretty much knew everybody along the line. He knew you, you knew him. He knew where every farm and mountain cabin and cow path was. And they would stop the train at a lot of places that were not on the timetable if you needed it. And he would run errands for people. It was not uncommon for the morning train to come out of Boone on its way to Johnson City. Somewhere along the way, there'd be somebody waiting alongside the track, and they'd flag the train down. And they'd say, "Mr. Crumley, I need this or I need that. Can you fetch it for me?" So they would go on to Johnson City. Depot was right there in the downtown business district, and they'd be laid over there for a couple hours before it was time to go back to Boone in the evening. So there'd be plenty of time for Mr. Crumley to shop around the downtown and find the requested items. And then, of course, they wouldn't expect the evening train, so they'd be there trackside again. And the train would stop one more time, and Mr. Crumley would hand them their bags. He said he carried everything from a spur thread to a pot-bellied stove. Early trains with nice conductors.
One car
I think it's the Wallback. Oh yeah, for the Wallback, right?
Well, we hope you enjoyed your ride on the Eat Taters and Learn on the Floor. Thanks for braving the iffy weather to come see us today. If you need a snack, Luke and Seth over here make an awesome pizza. And the Sidetrack Cafe just down past us here is also open. The gift shop is open down below us there in the depot building. You can browse for interesting things there.
10 feet.
And if you're interested in camp, don't forget about registration being available. So you can ask about that down at the check-in or check it out at doverdoors.com. There's a little bit of a gap, so do watch your step as you get off. Once again, thanks for joining us.
Unibog's up right now. Oh, there you go. He's on it.